Good morning, people. My name is Dr. George Sparks, and I have with me Dr. David Graves, PhD. He got his degree from Aberdeen University in Scotland. Also, he has excavated at the, well, influence of the Temple Mount and also in Shiloh on the Jordanian side, Tel El Hammam, where he was my dig supervisor. He has 35 years of experience in the Middle East. Also, just a fantastic number of books that I encourage everybody to read and to purchase. Today we're going to talk about a very unique discovery that Dr. Graves, along with his cohort, the archaeologist, Dr. Stripling, and they were at Tel El Hammam, and what they actually did is they bumped into, I'm not going to ruin it for you. I'm going to let him tell this story. And he just got done presenting his paper at NEAS, Near Eastern Archaeological Society. So I heard about this, and it's also on Facebook. So what I did is I said, Dr. Grace, would you come back to the program and present it without the archaeological technicalities that might be above our heads? And he agreed. So today I have Dr. Graves, and he's going to talk about this archaeological discovery, and I want you to join us. Sponsored by Bible Interact, and this is Archaeology from the Ground Down. Welcome, Dr. Graves.
Good to be with you, George, again. Yes, we had an amazing time in Jordan, excavating at a place called Tel El Hammam in the Jordan Valley. It's under the direction of Dr. Stephen Collins from Trinity Southwest University, Veritas International University, where he teaches archaeology, and the Department of Antiquities of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. So he worked under the auspices of the Jordanians, as well as a university in the United States. I was not associated with them, the university there. I did my degree, as you said, at the University of Aberdeen in Scotland, my PhD work, and I was teaching at Liberty University in the States. But I was at a conference, and a friend of mine who took all the photographs, I was supposed to go to another dig with him that year, and Mike Lodenny, he said, I'm going to a new dig this year because we can't dig in Jordan or in Israel this season. Do you want to come and join us at Tel El Hammam? And I said, sure. I had no idea what it was. The first season, we did some exploratory work. I was a small team, about, 6 or 7 of us, or 8 to 10. It was very, very small. The second season, we go back in 2006, and I discover a piece of pottery underneath the acacia trees in an exposed corner of a building. I could tell that the stones of the wall were large, so this wasn't Iron Age or Middle Bronze or Early Bronze. This was probably Roman or Byzantine. And so I decided to explore this a little bit and find out what the building was. So on one of our day trips, because we're not working every day, we have the weekends off, which in Jordan is Friday and Saturday. We went up to the site into Maraba, a city in Jordan, up on the plateau, and there's a church up there, a Greek Orthodox Basilica of St. George, that was built in the modern period, but it was built over top of a Byzantine church that has a mosaic floor called the Maraba map. It was built, or it was created in probably the 6th century AD, 527 to 565 AD. And I'm looking over this map, this beautiful floor in this church that had been restored. And lo and behold, I see the Jordan River. I know where that is. I see the city of Jericho. I know where that is. It's right directly across from us. But on the map, there's actually a city on the map in the same location of where we're excavating. So my thought is, at the time, what are all the scholars talking about this place? What do they name it? What are they identifying this site on the Maraba map with? So the next year I go back and do my research and begin to examine things, and I consult the one of the books, this one here by Donar. On the bottom of the map, it has all the sites listed. And what are they calling it? One of the scholars says it's Livias. Actually, a number of the scholars suggest that it's Livias. Donar does. Nelson Glick, Scott, and I agree with them that this is Livias, and we published on it in the Bible and Spade magazine. But the question is, we know what the name of the city is, Livias, but what archaeological site do they associate with the city? You see, those two things are different. The archaeological site and the ancient site can be two different things. Well, all of the scholars continue to say, Tel El Hammam, that we were excavating in Jordan there. It's the site behind me. In my head, you can see it right there. It's a beautiful archaeological tell, about 62 acres. It's huge. Everybody kept saying that the city of Livias was a little tiny spot called Tel El Rama, which is about a kilometer or two from us, down on the plain. Well, I thought, well, that just doesn't make sense. The city of Livias, which was named after the emperor's wife Livia, and it was rebuilt by Herod Antipas. Now, to give some historical context, Herod Antipas was the guy that beheaded John the Baptist and put him in prison down in Machaerus, which is just south of us by the Dead Sea, and wanted to meet Jesus, but couldn't meet Jesus because Jesus was up in Galilee at the time, and he only meets Jesus when he comes down to Jerusalem, and we're right across the valley from Jerusalem. So I theorize that Herod Antipas was living at Livias here at our site when he meets Jesus down in Jerusalem and has encounters with him and arrests John the Baptist and beheads him and puts him in prison down at Machaerus before beheading him. This little tiny site, Tel El Rama, I didn't think it was Livias. It couldn't be. To be a royal city such as Herod Antipas would have, couldn't be that small. I call it a pimple on the back of a camel. It's so small. Tel El Hammam is 62 acres. Tel Rama today is just a little mound in the little city or little village of Tel Rama, or Rama itself, and it has a Muslim cemetery on the top of it. So that was my first clue. I've identified the city, I think, of Livias. My quest goes on to find out where it would lead me. So in 2007, we had a trip to Madaba, and we visited the church, and lo and behold, I see that site called Livias, but then we go down to a place called Mount Nebo. Now this is where Moses is supposedly had gone up to view the promised land and was buried and died someplace around Mount Nebo. His cemetery and his grave has never been identified or discovered, but they put a church up there, and beside the church there's a visitor center, and inside the visitor center there's a small museum. It's got some pottery, many of them similar to what we've identified and excavated at our site, which was interesting. But then I spotted this Roman mile marker, and the mile marker had writing on it. Now, mile markers are, in the Roman period, every mile on a Roman road, they would put up a mile marker saying the emperor's name, who built it, who commemorated it, and the mileage to the next mile marker, to the next major center. I mean, it's the same thing as we have with our road signs today. Well, this particular Roman mile marker said it was 6 Roman miles from the Roman city of Eusebus to Livias. Well, that gave me some indication as to where it was located. So I went back and did the research and found where they discovered the Roman mile markers. The Franciscans had found them up on in the wadi leading from Eusebus down to our site. I walked the entire wadi myself, GPSing it with my colleague Jataiba from the Jordanian Department of Antiquities. And we located all the spots where the Roman mile markers had been identified. So 1 through 12. So I have the 6th Roman mile marker. And lo and behold, on the 9th mile marker, I come across another mile marker on the Roman road up in the Wadi. Had no writing on it, but I've got it identified on the Roman road.
For the listening audience, can you tell us what a wadi is?
Oh, a wadi is basically a valley where the water would run down during the winter period when they would have floods and the rain would run down through. And so it's a little valley that runs between a couple of mountains. That's what we call a wadi. It has a dried up waterbed. When we walked through it, there wasn't any water flowing, but they've dammed it down at Tel Kafrine, just beside our site, and they collect the water there and use the reservoir and the dam for the available people. So I go back to my library and I began doing research on Livias, and I began doing research on the ancient writers and who was talking about Livias. And I found 3 people or 3 references with a mention of Livias on them. Theodius says it was 12 Roman miles from Jericho. Well, I knew where Jericho was, so I did my circle of 12 Roman miles from Jericho. Eusebius in this Onomasticon has 2 references to Livias. Eusebius was an ancient writer. 5 Roman miles from Tel Damrine, we knew where Tel Damrine was, and 12 Roman miles from Heshbon, which was Eusebus, which is what the Roman mile marker said. He said it was 12 Roman miles, and we have, of course, the 6th mile marker, Roman mile marker. So I simply triangulated the 3 sites using Google Map after translating everything to Roman miles, because they're different from imperial miles. And lo and behold, they all intersect exactly at Tel El Hammam, and Tel Rama is off the mark. So it can't be Tel Rama, it's Tel El Hammam. So we've identified archaeologically and using geographic indicators the ancient location of Livias. The next thing we do is we begin to excavate that building that we discovered the first season, and lo and behold, we discovered it was a 35 by 40 meter Roman bath complex. Initially, we didn't know what it was, but we began doing excavations on it. Now, the word Tel El Hammam means the hill of the hot springs or hot bath. And we have 5 hot springs we've located around our site. In fact, they're still used today. They're capped and used for modern agricultural work on their plantations. They're banana plantations that are all around our site. So they're using it for farming. One of them is right beside this building that we excavated, this Roman bath complex. We also found a Roman tower on the Acropolis of the Tel. We're down on the lower Tel, this building. The Roman bath is down on the lower Tel. But we also find the Roman aqueducts that are running up and behind our site at Habasa. And there's a Roman fortification up there. They're trying to protect all of the water. And this water is flowing from a cold spring up in the mountains down to our site. And on Habasa, this little Tel across the road from us, there's 5 cisterns holding over 1 million liters of water that was supplying a major city. The next thing that I do is I was told that there's this beautiful mosaic just down the road from us in one of the banana fields. And it has a beautiful mosaic from a church in it. The problem was that they're growing marijuana in the banana fields, and they didn't want to take us there. And so I was the only Westerner, I think, that has ever seen this and photographed it. My guide, George, and I sneak into it. It's a Muslim cemetery now because they've dug down through these beautiful mosaics. But I was able to get photographs and publish them in our article on the reexamination of the location for the ancient city of Livias in 2011 in Levant magazine. So we have this beautiful chalice as a mosaic in the floor. So we know there's a church there. Now, in the 6th century, the time that the Moraba map was created, we have a pilgrim by the name of Eugenia from Spain, a Spanish pilgrim, and she's traveling the Middle East looking at all the holy sites, and she stops and she goes up to Mount Nebo, where we have this Roman mile marker on display and the church there, and she asks one of the bishops down in Livias, and he's the Bishop of Sodom, for information as to where she can go to find the grave of Moses. And she records in her diary that she traveled up to Mount Nebo, and she looked down into the valley, and she saw Livias and the land of the Sodomites. Now, you can't see the south end of the Dead Sea from Mount Nebo, because some have suggested that Sodom was in the south end of the Dead Sea. So she's looking from Mount Nebo, and when you look down there, you can clearly see Tel El Hammam, that I have identified as Livias, that she identified in the 6th century.
Okay, 6th century AD.
AD.
And what was the name of the bishop?
The Bishop of Sodom. She describes in her memoirs, her diary, that she received the information from the Bishop of Sodom. I believe that that's the church that we identified with that beautiful mosaic floor as where the Bishop of Sodom was situated. I did my research on it, and during that period, of the time of Palestina, it was under the auspices of the sea, the church sea of Sodom, up in the northern end of the Dead Sea. So we began to excavate, and we worked there for 8 seasons. We found the corner that was under the acacia tree where I found the pottery. And so Dr. Stripling and I begin to go for what we call the known to the unknown. We know where the corner is. We can see it. So we go that way, and we trace it in 2 different directions from the walls. And we begin tracing it along the edge of the wall itself. And we trace it for 35 meters in one direction and 40 meters in the other direction. We find the 3 corners. We do our calculations. We mark an X, and we dig, and sure enough, there's the 4th corner. So we have our building. A beautiful building. We excavated a number of squares. There's 59 squares total in the entire. The squares are 6 meters by 6 meters. That's an official square. And we excavated 18 of the 59 squares. We began finding pottery, beautiful pottery, whole vessels, everything from Hellenistic, a couple of pieces of Hellenistic we published, all the way through early Roman, late Roman, Byzantine, and Umayyad. And so this bath complex was excavated for a very long time. We found one of the rooms, which is a beautiful plastered bathing room that had benches where you could lay down and sit on. I had steps leading down into it. We found the water pipes that would run to fill it, a plug to drain it, all plastered. We were able to excavate its entirety in one of the rooms. And then a lot of pottery. I've got 65 plates that have been published. I've published all of our pottery in the book that we've published with all of the details and academic material, the preliminary reports on the Tel El Hammam excavation project, the Roman, the Byzantine, and the Islamic period. We have a Byzantine lantern, trefoil juglets, biconal juglets, spouted juglets, cooking pots. We have late Roman bag-shaped storage jars. We have oil lamps, a lot of oil lamps, the candlestick type oil lamps. We also have some late Byzantine charnel nose oil lamps. Now, the one that was really impressive to me was the late Byzantine oil lamp that's got an inscription on it in Greek. It's called a eulogia. They were souvenirs that were manufactured in Jerusalem in the 5th to 8th century AD, and they were used as souvenirs. The pilgrims would buy these and pick them up, and they would travel until they came to a bath, and then they would throw them in the bath, like you would throw a coin into a wishing well. And these were used to provide a eulogia, a means of acquiring health and well-being. The Greek inscription on it that said, Jesus' light shines for all. We found 2 of those. Now, the significance of this for us was that it puts our site on the Roman road from Jerusalem to Eusebus through the city of Livias, because that would be that's where the Roman road traveled. So it puts our site on the Roman road. The pilgrims are traveling with this souvenir, dropping it into our bath complex for good luck. And then we also found some early Islamic pear-shaped oil lamps, and then an inscription on one of the inside of the walls of the building. We found an Islamic inscription, and the Islamic inscription would read, "By the name of Allah, by his prophet Muhammad." So we knew it had been used all the way through to the Umayyad period. However, the site of the city of Livias, we know, was destroyed in the 1st century. It was burnt by rebels, according to the ancient writers, but it was also destroyed by an earthquake in AD 749. So in the 8th century, it goes out of business, and that's where we run out of the pottery from this bath complex that had been used for approximately 8 centuries. So that's our 8 years of work at the site. The site itself had some beautiful architecture. There were some rosette carved stones that were used as capitals, some half pillars that were used in the side of the building. We discovered arches for some of the rooms. All of our research we submitted to an archaeological architect by the name of Lane Rittmeyer, and he drew a beautiful picture and reproduction of what we excavated.
It sounds like quite the adventure to actually be at an excavation, possibly originally excavating for a much earlier time, maybe Middle Bronze, Iron Age, and then through your efforts, you locate a Roman bath, and then also the Roman mile markers, the Madaba map, assist in identifying this as an ancient city called Livias, which Herod Antipas was chronicled at being at that location. He was the Herod that wanted to meet Jesus and that had John the Baptist beheaded. You just don't know how things are going to slowly unravel. And an archaeological dig, it's like a giant puzzle that through academics and archaeology, you're putting hard evidence to a theme of the past, where, we can read about Livius, but now you actually find it. You could say, we could assume where Livius might be because the Madaba map, and now you can identify it. And to be a part of that, I think would be fantastic.
Yeah, people ask us, where's the rest of the city, which is a really good question. The rest of the city had been built on top of the Middle Bronze and late Bronze periods, but a lot of that had been stripped off because of agriculture in the modern day. And the modern city of Arauda, which was beside us, I believe that a lot of that was built on top of the ancient city of Livias, and much of the building blocks. Oh, incidentally, we discovered the spot, the location where they had been making the blocks, the building blocks for the city of Livias.
Are you talking about a mud brick or stone?
Stone that was cut out of the stone. The quarry where they found these Herodian building stones that were cut, we found it. It's called Tel Mishlaha.
I've heard that word before. What does that mean? Mishlaha.
Well, it's a location down on the plain, a little bit. It's about a half a kilometer from us, and there's actually a hot spring there that's not capped. But we found the mound and we saw the cuttings and the workings of the tools at the location where they were making the building blocks from the Roman period. So that was really cool. And then, of course, we have the major Roman fortification behind us, and then beside us at Tel Tahuna, there's an aqueduct running off of that. So there's Roman stuff all around us with this major water aqueduct supplying water for a major city that lays out all in front of this tell behind me, where there's a Roman fortification on top. We also find another Roman another Roman tower out on the plain. Basically, it's on the east end of our site. And so we have the whole area being protected. Why? They're protecting the water, people living there, protecting a major city. They have a perfect view of the Jordan Valley for any enemies coming. In the 1st century through to the 8th century, it's a happening place. And this, I believe, was the bathroom itself, the bathing room itself, that I think that Herod Antipas was laying in while he beheaded the prophet John the Baptist.
You're actually walking on in the vicinity of where this man would have been some 2,000 years ago, that is mentioned in the Gospels as beheading John the Baptist, which was a cousin of Jesus.
And Josephus says that he was imprisoned down at Machaerus before he was beheaded. So we have the Bible confirming it, we have Josephus confirming it, and now we have the archaeological evidence confirming it.
Who's to say that he might have held some of these Roman items and they were discarded? You don't know. That's pretty bone chilling, I think. You discover the location, you're walking in the area where in the past this man did such a notorious thing as killing John the Baptist. John the Baptist was a cousin to Jesus. And I just think that the whole connection is very fantastic. I mean, it's a remarkable connection.
Here's another historical fact that people might not recognize. Herod Antipas wanted to meet Jesus. Jesus calls him a fox. Jesus is in Galilee. Now, we need to understand a little bit about history here. Herod Antipas was the governor not only of Perea, which is down in the Jordan Valley area, but also of Galilee. But at that time, he was rebuilding and reconstructing his capital in Galilee called Sepphoris.
Yes.
That's been excavated by James Strong and others. Because he was excavating that particular capital up in the Galilee, he was living down in Perea at Livias during that period of time. And that's why he couldn't meet Jesus. He had to wait until Jesus traveled down to Jerusalem, which is across the valley, the Jordan Valley, from Tel El Hammam or Livias, before he could meet him and confront him and deal with, and that's why he's dealing with John the Baptist down there, because John the Baptist is baptizing on the Jordan River, which is just out on the plain from us. So all of the archaeology and geography coincides and makes sense when you understand the Bible with geography and archaeology.
It is fantastic because you think that when Mary, the mother of Jesus, was pregnant, she ventures and stays with Elizabeth. So you got this huge connection of family. In a way, you got this connection also in that place that you're staying. Here's this man, he wanted to meet Jesus. Jesus is actually talking about him. John said that you shouldn't be marrying this woman because she was not your wife, according to Jewish laws, I guess. And the whole connection is fantastic because it's just a connection with the Gospels, a connection with your location. That's remarkable.
Now, I also deal with the city of Livias in my book on the cities of the New Testament, and Livias is described in there and dealt with in some detail, as well as my publication of our finds. The preliminary report is a little more technical. This is a little more popular if somebody wants to look at the information. And I deal with every single New Testament city that's mentioned in the New Testament. I deal with Livias because I think it's so important, even though it's not mentioned specifically in the New Testament. All those cities, I think I got something like 86 of them are dealt with in my book on the cities of the New Testament.
Dr. Graves, I appreciate this time that we've had together. Your adventures and excavation with Dr. Stripling at Tel El Hammam, and at that location, you found Livias, the connection with Herod and John, and also Jesus and the events in the Gospels. I just think is totally incredible. But we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you.